Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain it, bringing you guys another Boruto 2 Blue Vortex discussion. Today, I want to talk to you guys about why the ending of the last chapter has set up a potential subversion of expectations for the next chapter when it fully comes to the battle with Ryu and Team Sarada, Mitsuki, Araya, and Yodo. Which, to be fully transparent with you, I hate the idea of what we're going to discuss here, but given where the chapter ended, this feels like it's going to be inevitable. Join me in today's newest Naruto Explain video where we break down why the battle with Ryu in the next chapter really stands a good chance at having a new challenger step up. That challenger is none other than everyone's favorite adopted son turned punching bag, Kawaki, who is in desperate need of a victory that isn't a cheap one, like when Boruto did all the heavy lifting against Hidari and then Kawaki swoops in and briefly kills Hidari before he's revived by Ryu and Matsuri. So if you can't tell from my tone, I hate this idea. I want my bias out of the way up front so there's no misunderstanding on where I stand and why I'm not a fan of this topic. Even though I think there's a chance this ends up happening, which I'm gonna puke if it does. I don't like this idea of this taking place because I feel it takes away from giving Sarada and Mitsuki the opportunity to fight against a much stronger opponent when the stakes are as high as they are. We have the claw grinds out on the battlefield who only really need one solid bite with their jaws locked in order to turn someone into a tree. We have Ryu, who has that Iron Sand Puppet Master combo. We have Konohamaru in danger of being eaten alive by Matsuri. We have Boruto getting impatient with Kashin-Koji. He wants to go out onto the battlefield. And you just removed the sword that was acting as an equalizer to the power that was being used against them. This has the makings of the best opportunity, in my opinion, to show off Sarada's Mangekyo, because everyone else, they've basically tapped out. Unless Mitsuki has some other type of Sage Mode power that we haven't seen, this is the extent of his power. Both he and 3-Tomo Sarada were only able to inflict damage on Ryu, but not fast enough to land fully deep hits on him to get the job done. All that's left is the Mangekyo Sharingan. In my humble opinion, for the sake of raising the stakes, I think it's best to let this current roster of combatants, Mitsuki, Yodo, Araya, and Sarada, to put those big heads of theirs together and work from scratch and try to find their way towards a victory. We know Sarada and Mitsuki are fast enough to land the attacks on Ryu. They just have not been able to get full impact damage because of that Hack's ability Ryu has. But I have this nagging feeling that it's going to be Kawaki who pops up at the end of the chapter, the same way I had that nagging feeling years ago that Jigen was going to beat the brakes off of Naruto and Sasuke. I remember being called crazy during the Delta fight when I said, yeah, Naruto's not going to beat that guy. Well before Kashin-Koji ever said it. So Kawaki is the most likely person to arrive on the battlefield and fight against Ryu in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 20. And there are several narrative and strategic reasons for this. His arrival, it would align with Kashin-Koji's long-term plans, Kawaki's own character development, and the tactical necessity of countering Ryu's overwhelming abilities. So let's go through all this step by step so you see where I'm coming from. So Kawaki is the only viable reinforcement right now. With Boruto effectively restricted from entering the battlefield due to Jura's imminent arrival if he does, the only powerful reinforcement option left is Kawaki. His decision to remove his limiters and demand additional power from Amato puts him in a perfect position to enter the fight as soon as his upgrade is complete. We don't know how long that might take, but this is fiction. Suspend disbelief. Wouldn't shock me if there's a quick turnaround time. Boruto's absence is by design. So Kashin-Koji has this warning about Jura. It means that Boruto cannot intervene without putting himself and others at extreme risk. This forces a different, equally capable fighter to step in, Kawaki, and should be worth noting, if he has Ishiki's full power, he should be able to just open up a portal and teleport himself there. We saw Ishiki do it. There's also no other viable backup option either. Sarada, Mitsuki, Araya, and Yodo, they've already lost their main effective countermeasure against Ryu. unless another character with a new ability steps up. So say Yodo has some other secret power, then they're all going to fall one by one. That's inevitable. Konohamaru is also facing a separate threat. With Matsuri attempting to devour Konohamaru, the battlefield, it is divided. The moment that Matsuri gets her mouth around Konohamaru, it's game over. This isn't a way for another fighter to step in, particularly Konohamaru. You're not going to see Shikadai, you're not going to see Nojin. They're bums. They're not going to go to that situation to assist the team, and then there's the matter of them getting there on time. Boruto's the fastest one to get there, and Kawaki via the teleportation could do it. Again, Ishiki did it. Ishiki didn't have a Karma Seal. He just opened up a portal and went there. Given these conditions, Kawaki is the only logical combatant who can realistically arrive and shift the tide in battle. Now, Kawaki's Kokugan directly counters Ryu's abilities. Ryu's main strength comes from his ability to manipulate the Iron Sand and possess his opponents by controlling them. However, Kawaki's Kokugan, the dojutsu he inherited from Ishiki, can negate this advantage entirely. He can shrink the Iron Sand. The biggest issue for Sarada's team is that Ryu can escape damage by dispersing into Iron Sand and also attack with Iron Sand. However, Kawaki's Kokugan allows him to shrink the Iron Sand regardless as to how he uses them. This bypasses the main issue that the current team is dealing with. He can't control them with anything if he can't use the Iron Sand. That makes this power useless. Even if Ryu tries to control Kawaki's body, Kawaki's combat style does not rely on taijutsu alone. He has karma, he has ninja tech modifications, he also can shrink himself down into 1 inch in size. This means he is far less susceptible to Ryu's abilities than any of the other shinobi that are there. With Ishiki's power fully unlocked, Kawaki will also gain immense speed and reaction time boost, allowing him to counter Ryu's moves before they can take full effect. Basically, this is instant adaptation available to Kawaki. Thus, Kawaki, when you think about it, is a natural counter to Ryu's abilities, making him the perfect opponent for this battle. The next layer to all of this is Kashin Koji's strategic manipulation. Kashin Koji has repeatedly demonstrated that he uses foresight and planning to manipulate events in his favor. His 10 Directions ability allows him to foresee the current battle scenario, which is likely why he instructed Boruto to tell Kawaki to remove his limiters. Koji knew that this team stood a chance at losing, in particular losing the battle once their counter to Ryu is taken away. Since Koji has been acting as a strategist rather than a frontline fighter, he likely saw that Sarada's team, they would lose Araya's sword, leaving them vulnerable. Anticipating this, it seems like he might have positioned Kawaki as the next best countermeasure. It also keeps Boruto out the fight, and that's the key. If Boruto rushes in, he risks immediate death at the hands of Juro. We know that Kashin Koji said this is coming. Instead, Kashin Koji has orchestrated events so that Kawaki, he can power up and potentially take the fight to Ryu while also keeping Boruto away from Juro's detection. Training Kawaki for the real fight against Juro is also another benefit here. So Koji could see this as an opportunity to have Kawaki test his new abilities against Ryu before facing Juro. And best of all, this would be something that the battery's already in Kawaki's back. Since Juro is the true leader of the Shinju army, ensuring that Kawaki's battle ready is the key in terms of components to Kashin Koji's long-term plan. We have Ada, who is watching the battle itself take place. We know that she and Shikamaru have been in contact, so the seeds are there should they do this. And Kawaki has to keep appearances up. He has to obey the Hokage. Shikamaru has incentive to have him go there. Essentially, this battle would serve as a trial run for Kawaki for his newfound powers, giving him a necessary warm-up before confronting the biggest threat that we've had in the story in the history of the Naruto franchise. Kawaki's own personal arc, it also aligns with this battle. Kawaki is at a crossroads where he is seeking more power at any cost. His demand for Amato to remove his limiters and potentially implant Shibai Otsutsuki's DNA, it proves he is obsessed with reaching a godlike level of strength because he wants to protect Naruto. This battle serves as Kawaki's proof of power moment. By defeating Ryu, Kawaki can demonstrate that his new upgrades, they are worth the risk. This would solidify his status as an absolute powerhouse and justify his willingness to go even further in seeking strength. It would also create a symbolic contrast between Kawaki and Sarada. So Kawaki is not going to behave in the way Sarada did. Sarada's team, they fight as a unit, much to the dismay of a lot of people. They want one-on-one fights. Naruto's basically been about jumping your ass. One-on-one fights are saved for moments like this, or they're saved for the highest emotional payoff. But Kawaki, he stands alone, relying on overwhelming strength instead of teamwork, which is in character for Kawaki. This battle will highlight the ideological gap between Kawaki and Sarada, foreshadowing future clashes between them. And we've seen seeds planted. Sarada did step in his face in the Hokage office. Kawaki would also gain confidence in his new powers. If Kawaki is able to effortlessly defeat Ryu and even save Konohamaru from Matsuri, it will cement his belief that he is now strong enough to protect the world, and it will reinforce that growing god complex he has when it comes to power. This could push him further down the path of taking on Juro eventually, and the Shinji related threats, before turning onto Code and then turning onto Boruto. There's also a narrative payoff for Kawaki's attack, should he get this power up. So Kawaki's transformation into a fully fledged combatant with Ishiki's unrestricted power and possibly Shibai's DNA, it needs an immediate payoff for the story. He needs a showcase battle. A shonen power-up, it means nothing unless it's demonstrated in action. This fight against Ryu is the perfect opportunity to showcase Kawaki's newfound abilities, especially after we saw that Ryu can come up with strategies mid-fight, and we also see the extent of his powers. This would also foreshadow his potential role in a battle against Juro. If Kawaki easily defeats Ryu, it foreshadows that he could become a real contender against Juro, the true final boss of the current arc, assuming that he's doing so alongside Boruto. This would also further widen the gap between Kawaki and Boruto, because if Kawaki defeats Ryu effortlessly, it's going to create a major contrast between himself and Boruto, reinforcing the tension between their respective philosophies. This isn't necessarily a situation where Kawaki might be stronger than Boruto, though it is implied he's telling Kawaki, kill me if it ever comes to this, and Momoshiki does take over my body. That tells you how strong he expects Kawaki to get. However, this would be more so about the philosophical differences. This battle, it would serve as Kawaki's official entrance into the next stage of the story, and it would also solidify his new power level. In conclusion, I'll wrap up and I'll say this: Kawaki's arrival, in my opinion, as much as I hate even discussing it, it is inevitable. Everything right now in the story is lining up for Kawaki to be the one who steps in to fight Ryu. He's the only available reinforcement since Boruto's sideline. His Kokugan perfectly counters Ryu's abilities. Kashin Koji likely saw this outcome and manipulated events to force it. You gotta remember, he is also teaching Boruto what it means to be a singularity of fate, to guide the world down the proper timeline so that they can defeat Juro. It would also serve as a test run for Kawaki's new powers before fighting Juro. It also continues his character arc of pushing and pursuing absolute strength. The story needs immediate showcase of Kawaki's new power level. If Kawaki does show up, it will be a perfect way to demonstrate his evolution as a fighter, build suspense for his future battles, cement his position as a central powerhouse in the series. Obviously, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and clicking here to check out more videos from Naruto Explained, or click over here to check out this video from my Anime Explained channel, where I talk about non-Naruto content in the form of video essays, chapter reviews, explained videos, and so much more.